Hi, Peter Charles here, Hooked for Life Fly Fishing. And this is going to be my second video on the Sakasa Kabari flies. These Kabari flies come in a variety of styles. The Sakasa style is the one we think of with the forward-facing hackles, and that's what we're going to tie it. I'm going to tie it using pheasant tail, I should say. And it'll give a pheasant tail body. Very, very simple fly. You can knock them together real fast. The important thing about this particular video is I'm going to show you the tying order, which is a little different if you've been used to tying North Country spiders, for example. This is a little bit different in how it's put together. So let's get going. My thread, this is very nice dark brown Veevus 10-aught. The body is going to be a good old pheasant. And this time I'm going to use a grouse feather, and you can see how I've prepared it. So we'll get started right at the eye of the hook. Bring it back about 25% of the shank. Now I'm going to stop here. Now let's talk about the heads for a second on these flies. In my introduction video, we had a discussion in the commentary about whether these flies have fat heads or skinny heads. In this case, I'm going to be doing a skinny head, but let's talk about what I could do here. I could, if I want to make a fat head, make multiple passes with a thread and just thicken it up. I could throw on some peacock herl. I could throw on some barbs of pheasant tail, for example. So I've made the front end pheasant, the back end pheasant. I also could throw in some dubbing if I wanted to. These are your choices. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm just going to use thread. The other thing I'm going to say is, normally if you've watched my videos, you know I like big heads on flies that are designed to swing, because those big heads move water and create some turbulence which moves the materials. This fly doesn't get used that way. It's not a fly that's meant to be swung on a tight line all the time. So it kind of defeats the purpose to build it up to be swung when you're not going to swing it. So I don't think the head has any real impact on how this thing is going to fish. It's more about tradition and that sort of thing. So I'm just going to go with the skinny head because I want to. So I'm just going to make a pass back, and then I'll just come forward, and that'll be the head on this fly, and that'll be it. Now I'm going to tie in the pheasant barbs. You want to take about 4 or 5 so you have enough of a body. So I'm going to tie these in on the tip section. And I'm just going to fold the tip back just to help create a little bit of thickness. And I'll just wind that all the way back and bring them forward. Now, the trick is not to break these. We tied them in by the tip. They are delicate. So you notice I've hardly got any tension on here at all. Basically using the weight of the hackle pliers to keep them in place. And you can put a couple of twists in there if you find that the barbs are separating on you. This is an offset hook, plus it has quite the bend in it. So when you're winding on, it can get fiddly. Now if you're lucky, this will break. Nope. Sometimes they break and sometimes they don't. There we go. So I'll clean that up. Now I'll come in here, and when you're tying in a feather on a tenkara fly, you tie with the curve away from you, and you tie it with the point of the feather pointing backwards. So I'm just going to take care of that. A couple of soft wraps, and then some nice hard wraps in there. Now, this is going to get in the way. This thread will get in the way. So one of the things I do with with pheasant tail sometimes is I cover it with a couple of broad wraps like that. Now I can move my bobbin out of the way, and then I'll come back, and that's going to give that some strength. You're not going to have your pheasant tail breaking so easily on the first fish. Okay, just give that a little bit of a fold to help get started. Now, the one thing you're doing differently, instead of winding in front, you're winding behind. Now, I can leave that just laying there. The tension on that will keep it in place. And I will just bring my thread forward. And I will lift that quill up and see if it'll break off. There we go. Now you can come in here with your toothbrush and fluff those forward. Now we're just going to put some extra wraps in here to lock everything in place. I got a few barbs there that want to go backwards, so we'll just get them out of the way. And what you're going to do is just to make those barbs sit a little bit more forward. Don't turn it into a cone, but you can put a few wraps tight to the back here. There we go. That'll give you a little bit more of that forward splay. Now, I just come in here with my half hitch. And put a few knots at the back there. Now, I would probably recommend a little bit of head cement at the back. But, so there is our Tenkara type fly, the Sakasa Kabari fly, tied with a pheasant body, brown thread, and I've used a grouse feather. You could use a hen feather. I mean, this hen hackle would do quite nicely. You don't have to get too fussy about the hackle you're using. This grouse is very soft. It will move extremely well. One of the methods for fishing this would be to let it sink, and of course those hackles would close up like this, and then when you pull it forward and pulse it, they go back and then they flop forward again, so that you've got this motion in the hackle when you pulse it up, lift it up and down, lift it up and down. Very interesting kind of fly, a very interesting technique. Something else too is you don't have to have a Tenkara rod to fish this. Since the rivers open up and the season starts, I'll be taking out my typical NRX 10-foot 4-weight nymphing rod. Going to fish a few of these flies, and you'll see what you can do with just a regular fly rod. You don't have to go Tenkara if you don't have to. It's more about the way they're fished rather than the rod you're using. So we'll get into that as soon as we've got some an open season and some decent weather to fish. Cheers.